My name is Eleanor Vance. For 40 years, my world was bound by the scent of old paper and leather, the hushed reverence of the university library where I worked. I was a guardian of stories, a curator of knowledge, and I found a quiet, profound joy in the order and permanence of it all. Now retired, my world is defined by the steady rhythm of the seasons here in Cedar Creek, a small town nestled in the green, misty foothills of the Cascades. My home, a cedar-shingled house my late husband, Arthur, and I bought when we were young, has settled into the landscape like a native stone. Its windows look out onto a garden I've tended for decades, a riot of rhododendrons, ferns, and a towering Douglas fir that whispers secrets to the wind. Arthur has been gone for 5 years, taken by a sudden illness that felt like a quiet, final chapter closing in a book I wasn't ready to finish. Living alone has been an adjustment, a process of rediscovering my own narrative. My days begin with a cup of strong tea, sipped in the armchair by the bay window, watching the morning light filter through the damp, green air of the Pacific Northwest. "Nana, who is this?" My granddaughter, Lily, pointed a small finger at a silver-framed photograph on the mantelpiece. She was here for the weekend, a small, bright spark in the quiet expanse of my house. At 10, she possessed a soulfulness that sometimes took my breath away. I moved to sit beside her on the hearth rug, the warmth of the low-burning fire a comfort against the autumn chill. "That's your Grandpa Arthur and me, just a few weeks after we were married." In the photo, we were impossibly young, standing on a beach with the wind whipping my hair across my face, Arthur's arm a sturdy anchor around my waist. Lily tilted her head, her deep blue eyes a direct inheritance from her father studying the image with solemn intensity. "You look like Mommy." A gentle smile touched my lips. "Yes, your mother has my smile," I said, my fingers brushing through her silky, blonde hair. "But you, my love, you are a perfect blend. You have your mother's curiosity and your father's eyes." My daughter, Clara, was the director of the Cedar Creek Gallery. Her passion for art, a quiet but fierce flame since childhood, had blossomed into a respected career. I was immensely proud of her. A decade ago, she had married Julian Croft, a man who moved through the world with an air of effortless success. He was a partner at Cascade Equity Partners, a high-powered investment firm in Seattle, and he provided a life for Clara and Lily that was, from the outside, flawless. They lived in a stunning modern home of glass and steel on the other side of town, a showpiece of minimalist design that always felt a little cold to me. They were the couple people admired at gallery openings and charity galas, their lives a beautifully curated exhibition. And at the center of it was Lily, their bright, beloved daughter. Weekends spent at farmers markets and hiking the nearby trails painted a picture of domestic bliss. Yet, for the past few months, a subtle dissonance had begun to trouble me, a faint, discordant note in their perfect symphony. "Lilybug, shall we make some blackberry scones?" "I have that jam we made this summer," I suggested, rising to my feet. "Yes, the ones that turn your tongue purple," she chirped, her solemn mood evaporating as she skipped towards the kitchen. I followed, smiling at her easy joy, but my thoughts remained with her mother. Clara's voice on the phone last week had been thin, stretched taut like a wire. She'd blamed it on preparations for a new exhibit, but a mother's intuition is a stubborn thing. When I'd seen her last, at a community concert a month ago, the elegant bones of her face seemed more prominent, and there were faint, bruised shadows beneath her eyes that even her careful makeup couldn't fully conceal. "Is Mommy tired a lot?" Lily asked, her question so quiet it was almost lost in the clatter of the flour sifter. I paused, my hands coated in a fine white dust. She was such a perceptive child. "Why do you ask, sweetheart?" I kept my voice light. She shrugged her small shoulders, her attention focused on dropping spoonfuls of jam into the dough. "I don't know," she murmured. She seems sad when she thinks no one is looking." My heart gave a small, painful lurch. "I see. Well, Grown-ups get sad sometimes when they're very tired. It's a lot of work, running a whole art gallery. Daddy's voice has been loud lately, Lily added, her own voice dropping to a whisper. She swirled the jam into the dough with her finger, her expression clouded. I didn't say anything, just reached out and smoothed her hair back from her forehead. A cold knot of anxiety was tightening in my chest. What was happening in that glass house on the hill? My feelings about Julian had always been complex. He was polished, intelligent, and unfailingly polite to me, a man who projected an image of perfect control. But beneath the surface, I'd sometimes sensed a chilling lack of warmth, an insistence on perfection that seemed to leave no room for human frailty. And Clara, my vibrant, independent Clara, often seemed to shrink in his presence, her own opinions deferring to his with a quiet, practiced ease. As the scones baked, filling the kitchen with the warm, sweet scent of summer berries, I considered calling Clara. I picked up the phone twice, but set it back down. Perhaps I was borrowing trouble. Perhaps this was just the normal ebb and flow of a marriage, and my worry was nothing more than the overprotective meddling of an old woman. Still, Lily's words, Daddy's voice, has been loud echoed in my mind. 5 years ago, when Arthur's heart had simply stopped, I had been forced to confront my own vulnerability. The silence in this house had been a physical presence, a weight that threatened to crush me. But after a few months of adrift, I'd found a new purpose. I'd started a community literacy program at the public library, helping women who had left difficult situations learn to read and write, to find their own voices on the page. Many of them had stories of suffering and silence, trapped in beautiful homes with powerful husbands, their privilege a gilded cage that locked them away from help. Are they ready? Lily's voice pulled me from my reverie. Oh, yes. They're a beautiful golden brown. As I slid the tray from the oven, I made a decision. I would call Clara tomorrow. I would be casual, gentle. I would probe, carefully. If my daughter was truly fine, then I would be relieved. But if she wasn't, I wanted her to know she had a safe harbor. My work had taught me to see the invisible ink in people's stories, to read the narratives hidden between the lines. Lily, let's have a wonderful day together tomorrow, too, I said, kissing the top of her head. Yes, I love being at Nana's house, she exclaimed, her laughter pure and untroubled. But as she looked up at me, I thought I saw a flicker of an old shadow deep in her father's blue eyes. The spring morning was glorious, the kind of day in the Pacific Northwest that feels like a gift after a long season of rain. Sunlight streamed through the lace curtains, painting dancing patterns on the warm wood of the kitchen floor. I was flipping pancakes, their buttermilk tang filling the air. It was the last day of Lily's spring break. Clara and Julian were due to pick her up in the afternoon. Lily, my love, are you awake? Breakfast is on the table. When I went upstairs and peeked into the guest room, she was already dressed, sitting in the small window seat, gazing out at the garden where the first crocuses were pushing through the damp earth. Usually, the smell of pancakes would have her bounding down the stairs. Her stillness sent a fresh pang of worry through me. Good morning, Lily. It's almost time to go home. She only nodded, not turning around. I went and sat beside her on the cushioned seat. The spring sun warmed our shoulders. Did you have a good visit, sweetheart? Yes, she said, her voice small. Very much. She finally turned to look at me, and I saw that her beautiful eyes were shimmering with unshed tears. I love your house, Nana. I took her small, cool hand in mine. You can come back next weekend if you like. And this summer, you can stay for a whole long time. Lily's voice trembled. What if I can't come this summer? Why wouldn't you be able to come? I asked gently. Do your mom and dad have other plans? She shook her head, looking down at her hands. I don't know. Over the past 3 days, Lily had not been her usual ebullient self. She was quiet, prone to staring into the distance. The first night, she'd woken from a nightmare, crying out and trembling in my arms until she fell back asleep. When I'd asked her what it was about, she'd only shaken her head and said, I don't remember. Yesterday, as we were potting new geraniums for the porch, she'd looked up at me with wide, serious eyes and said, "Nana, I'm worried about Mommy." When I tried to gently ask why, she'd pressed her lips together. "I can't say. Daddy will be mad," she'd whispered, and refused to speak of it again. "Lily, is there something you want to tell me?" I looked into her eyes, trying to convey a world of safety and trust. "You know you can tell Nana anything." Her lower lip began to tremble. She opened her mouth to speak, but at that exact moment, the sound of the doorbell echoed up the stairs. Clara and Julian, earlier than expected. "Oh, they're here already," I said, getting up. "Let's go down. We can all have some pancakes before you leave." Lily shot up and grabbed the sleeve of my cardigan. "Nana, what is it, sweetheart?" A look of stark fear flashed across her face. In a voice so small it was almost a breath, she said, "Nana, I don't want to go home." I knelt, bringing myself to her level. "Why, Lily? Did something happen?" Just as she started to form a word, the sound of footsteps on the stairs reached us. Julian and Clara had let themselves in. "Eleanor, good morning. Is Lily up?" Julian's voice, smooth and confident, filled the hallway. Lily's entire demeanor shifted in an instant. The fear was shuttered away, her expression becoming blank, closed. She took a small step back from me. The door swung open, and they were there. "Good morning, Mom," Clara said with a bright smile that didn't reach her eyes. She looked exhausted, a deep weariness etched beneath the careful layer of foundation. "Lily, honey, are you ready to go? I've made pancakes. Why don't you all have some before you head out?" I suggested, keeping my own voice even and calm. "Sorry, Eleanor, we're in a bit of a rush," Julian said, glancing at his expensive watch. "I have a conference call I need to prep for this afternoon." "I see," I said, my disappointment a tangible thing. "Well, let me just pack up Lily's things." Lily silently retrieved her small backpack from the bed. As I gathered her clothes and the book we'd been reading, Julian's gaze fell on his daughter, his brow furrowing slightly. "You seem quiet, Lily. Did you not have a good time at Nana's?" "I had a good time," she answered, her voice a monotone, her eyes fixed on the floor. Clara looked at me, a question in her eyes. Was she feeling all right? "She seemed a little tired, but we had a lovely, quiet visit," I said, a protective instinct rising in me. We went downstairs. At the front door, I knelt and pulled Lily into a tight hug, breathing in the scent of her hair. "I'll see you soon, my love. I'll be looking forward to it." As I held her, she burrowed her face into my shoulder and whispered, so faintly I almost missed it, "Nana, I'm scared." Before I could respond, Julian called from the driveway, his voice sharp with impatience. "Lily, let's go." Clara put a hand on her daughter's back, gently urging her forward. "Go on, sweetie. Say thank you to Nana." "Thank you, Nana," Lily said, her voice wobbling. As she turned to leave, she stopped, darted back to me, and pressed a small, folded piece of paper into my palm, her small fingers closing mine around it. Then she was gone, scurrying out the door to the waiting car. "Thanks for having her, Mom," Clara said, giving me a quick, distracted kiss on the cheek before she, too, hurried away. I stood in the doorway, waving, a placid smile fixed on my face until their sleek, silver car disappeared around the corner. The moment I was alone, the smile crumbled. My hand was trembling as I looked down at the object Lily had given me. It wasn't just a note. It was a drawing on a piece of paper torn from a small sketchpad. A child's drawing of a stick figure woman, crying, while a larger stick figure man with a jagged, angry mouth stood over her. Rain, or perhaps tears, fell all around them. I slowly turned it over. On the back, in wobbly, 10-year-old pencil script, were 5 words. "Daddy is a storm. Help." The air left my lungs. My blood ran cold. With a shaking hand, I clutched the drawing to my chest, my gaze fixed on the empty street where my family had just been. Julian's perfect smile, Clara's haunted eyes, Lily's stark fear, the discordant notes resolved into a terrifying, undeniable chord. I closed the door, the click of the latch sounding unnaturally loud in the sudden silence. I sank into a chair at the dining table, the desperate plea from my granddaughter clutched in my hand. Questions and fears swirled in my mind like a gathering tempest. But beneath the fear, something else was taking root. A fierce, cold resolve. The resolve of a librarian who knew that some stories cannot be allowed to end in tragedy. My hands were trembling, but my mind was sharpening, focusing. I was a guardian of stories, and I would be damned if I let this be my daughter's. I smoothed the drawing out on the table, reading the words again and again. Daddy is a storm. Help. The simple, poetic horror of it settled in my bones. I knew from my literacy work that direct confrontation could be catastrophic. If I called Julian, full of accusations, he would simply close ranks, isolating Clara and Lily even further, making my access to them impossible. No, I had to be careful. I had to talk to Clara first, alone. That evening, I dialed her number. It rang 3 times before she answered, her voice wary. Mom? Is everything okay? I was just calling to say again what a lovely time I had with Lily, I began, my voice a careful performance of casual warmth. Did you all get home all right? Yes, of course. The tension in her voice was palpable. Julian had to go back to the office. He'll be late tonight. I see. I chose my next words as if selecting books for a delicate collection. Clara, you seemed tired today. Are you sure everything is all right? Is anything worrying you? A beat of silence stretched across the line. I'm fine, Mom. Really? Just stressed with the new exhibit, she answered, her voice too quick, too brittle. I haven't been sleeping well. I understand. I could feel the wall she was building. Well, I was thinking I'd love to come over for lunch this weekend. It's been too long. Another pause. This weekend is a bit busy. Julian has his golf tournament on Saturday. Saturday would be perfect, then, I interjected smoothly. We could have a nice, quiet afternoon, just the 3 of us. You, me, and Lily. After a moment's hesitation, she relented. Okay, Mom. Saturday then. Come around noon. After we hung up, I pulled out a fresh legal pad. My years in the library had taught me the power of meticulous documentation. I took Lily's drawing, placed it in a protective plastic sleeve, and tucked it away in a locked drawer in my desk. Then I began to write, noting the date, the time of the call, and Clara's strained demeanor. On Friday, I packed an overnight bag with a change of clothes and toiletries for both Clara and Lily, stowing it in the trunk of my car. I hoped, with all my heart, that I was wrong, that this was all a terrible misunderstanding. But hope was a luxury. Preparedness was a necessity. Saturday morning arrived, gray and overcast. I drove to Clara's house, the bag in my trunk a heavy secret. Their home, when I pulled into the driveway, was as immaculate as ever. The minimalist landscaping was perfectly manicured, the large glass windows reflecting the cloudy sky like unblinking eyes. When I rang the bell, it was Lily who flew to the door. Nana. She wrapped her arms around my waist, her hug fierce and desperate. Oh, Lilybug, it's so good to see you, I murmured, holding her tight. I could feel the relief flooding out of her small body. Clara appeared in the doorway behind her, a vision of casual elegance in cream-colored linen trousers and a silk blouse. Mom, you're early. The traffic was light, I said with a smile, stepping inside. The interior was cool and quiet, the silence different from the peaceful quiet of my own home. It felt sterile, empty. With Julian gone, however, the oppressive tension was absent. Lily seemed to breathe easier here, too. I'll put on some water for tea, Clara said, heading for the kitchen, a gleaming expanse of stainless steel and white quartz. I followed her. I can help. As Clara reached up to a high cabinet for the mugs, the sleeve of her silk blouse slipped down her arm. For a fraction of a second, I saw it. A cluster of dark, ugly bruises on her inner forearm, mottled purple and blue, in the distinct shape of a gripping hand. I drew in a sharp, silent breath. "Clara," I said, my voice quiet but firm. "What is that on your arm?" She snatched her arm down, pulling the sleeve taut. "It's nothing. I bumped into a filing cabinet at work." "I'm so clumsy." The lie was thin, pathetic. I said nothing, taking the teapot from her unsteady hands. This was the moment. If I let it pass, the door might close forever. "Lily, sweetie," I said, turning to my granddaughter who had trailed after us. "There's a new swing set in the backyard. Why don't you go try it out for a bit? I'll come join you in a little while." Lily, sensing the sudden gravity in the room, nodded and slipped out the back door. When she was gone, I took a deep breath. I reached into my purse and pulled out the plastic sleeve containing Lily's drawing. I laid it on the pristine white countertop. "Clara, look at this." The moment her eyes fell on the drawing, the color drained from her face. "That's Lily." "I also saw the bruises on your arm," I said, my gaze steady on hers. "Tell me the truth." Tears instantly welled in her eyes. She set her mug down with a clatter, her hand trembling violently. She sank onto a bar stool, her perfect composure shattering like glass. "Mom." Her voice broke. "It's nothing. I'm fine. Clara." I went to her and took her hand. It was ice cold. "I am your mother. I love you, and I will protect you, and I will protect Lily. But you have to tell me the truth." She covered her face with her hands and began to sob, her shoulders shaking with the force of her grief. I stood beside her, my hand on her back, and I waited. My years as a librarian taught me patience, the power of allowing for silence. Finally, she lifted her tear-streaked face. "It's all broken, Mom. Everything." "Since when?" I asked softly. "Last year," she whispered, her eyes closing as if against a painful memory. "Julian made partner. The pressure, the stress, it all got worse. At first, it was just yelling, breaking things. Then, she trailed off, unable to say the words. I listened as the whole story spilled out of her, a torrent of pain and shame held back for months. Julian's rage, fueled by pressure at work and heavy drinking. The discovery of an affair with a young associate, and the violent explosion that had followed when Clara confronted him. "Why didn't you tell me? Why didn't you ask for help?" I asked, my heart aching for her. "I was so ashamed," she choked out. "And I thought I could manage it. For Lily. He never touches Lily." "But Lily knows," I said, gesturing to the drawing. "She sees it all, Clara. She hears it. She feels it. She is living in the middle of that storm." Clara looked up at me, her eyes a well of sorrow. "She's what I worry about the most. I don't know what to do." "You are not safe," I said, my voice imbued with a certainty I didn't entirely feel, but knew she needed to hear. "Neither of you are." "But Julian has so much power," she whispered, her voice trembling. "His reputation, his connections in this city, no one would believe me." "I believe you," I said fiercely. "And we have evidence." "What evidence?" "Lily's drawing. And I am going to take pictures of your bruises. Right now." I stood up. "And I have a friend from my literacy group. She's a lawyer who specializes in family law, in cases just like this. Her name is Sarah Chen. I'm going to call her." Clara closed her eyes and let out a long, shuddering breath. It was the sound of a dam breaking. "What do I do?" she asked, her voice small and lost. "First," I said, my own resolve solidifying into a concrete plan, "we make sure you and Lily are safe. Then, we start the legal process. And right now, before Julian gets home tomorrow, we document everything." I took out my phone and, with the detached professionalism of a researcher cataloging an artifact, I photographed the bruises on her arm. I gently convinced her to show me others. She lifted her shirt to reveal a constellation of fading yellow and purple marks across her back and ribs. As I documented the geography of her husband's cruelty, a white-hot rage burned in my chest, a rage so pure and cold it felt like a physical force. "How do we tell Lily?" Clara asked, her voice laced with anxiety. "We tell her the truth," I answered simply. "We tell her she was brave, and that because of her courage, we're going to make sure the storm is over. For good." As we spoke, Lily had crept back inside. She was standing in the kitchen doorway, her small face pale, her eyes wide. I saw her and beckoned her over gently. "Lily, come here, my love." She approached us tentatively. "Mommy, are you mad at me?" she asked, her gaze fixed on her mother. Clara shook her head, wiping fresh tears from her cheeks. "No, sweetie. Never. You did the bravest thing." She pulled her daughter into her arms, holding her tight. "I'm so sorry, Lily. I'm so sorry Mommy wasn't stronger." Lily burst into tears, clinging to her mother, and I wrapped my arms around them both. The three of us stood there for a long time, a small, weeping island in the center of that cold, silent kitchen. And in that moment, I made a new vow. I would see them through this, no matter what it took. "What now?" Clara asked, her voice muffled in my shoulder. "Now," I said, stepping back, "we pack. You're both coming home with me today. We'll make our plans from there." 2 days later, my dining room table was covered in paperwork. Sarah Chin, a sharp, compassionate woman with kind eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor, was reviewing the evidence, the photographs, my detailed notes, Lily's drawing. "This is more than enough," Sarah said, tapping a pen on a stack of documents. "We'll file for an emergency protection order first thing tomorrow. The judge should grant it immediately." Clara sipped her tea, her hands still not entirely steady. "Julian will be furious. He'll fight this with everything he has." "Let him," Sarah said firmly. "His reputation won't stand up against clear evidence of domestic violence. The courts have seen men like him before." I placed a hand on my daughter's arm. She had regained some of her color in the past 2 days, but the fear was still a ghost in her eyes. Lily was outside, chasing butterflies in the safety of my garden, the sound of her laughter a balm to our frayed nerves. "Clara, we need to go back one more time," I said. "For your personal documents, a few more of Lily's things. Julian is on a business trip to Portland. His flight isn't due back until tomorrow night. We can go in the morning." "I'm scared to go back there," she whispered. "I'll be with you the entire time," I said, squeezing her hand. "We have a plan. We'll be in and out." Sarah gathered her files. "I'll hold onto the evidence." "I'll meet you at the courthouse tomorrow at 1 o'clock, she said to Clara. "You'll be all right until then?" Clara nodded, a flicker of her old strength returning. "Thank you, Sarah. And Mom, I don't know what I would have done." "We're going to be fine," I said, hugging her. "This is just the next chapter." The next morning, with Lily safely at a friend's house, Clara and I drove back to the glass house on the hill. A nervous tension hummed between us in the car. Inside, we worked quickly, a silent, efficient team. We gathered clothes, Lily's school books and her favorite stuffed bear, photo albums, and the lockbox containing their passports, birth certificates, and other vital papers. "We're almost done," I said, carrying a box out to the car. "Just one more trip." At that exact moment, a sleek, dark sedan swung into the driveway, braking sharply. It was Julian. "What the hell is this?" he demanded, getting out of the car, his face a mask of thunderous rage. "Clara, where have you been? Why haven't you been answering my calls?" I moved to stand slightly in front of my daughter, a small, unlikely shield. "Clara and Lily have been staying with me." "I wasn't asking you," he snapped, his eyes locked on his wife. "Clara, what is going on? What is all this?" Clara, though trembling, straightened her shoulders. "Julian, I'm leaving. We need some time apart." "Apart?" His voice was incredulous. "Don't be absurd. You're my wife. You're not going anywhere." "Yes, she is," I said, my voice low and steady. "And you will never lay a hand on her again." What are you talking about? He tried to feign confusion, a flicker of panic in his eyes. Clara, what nonsense have you been telling your mother? The truth, Clara said, her voice small but clear. It's over, Julian. His face twisted. Get inside, he commanded, lunging forward and grabbing her arm. We'll discuss this in private. Let go of me, Clara cried, trying to pull away. My own hand was already in my coat pocket. I had taken out my phone the moment I saw his car, quietly activating the voice recorder. I stepped between them. Do not touch her, I said, my voice ringing with an authority that surprised even me. We've documented everything, Julian. The abuse, the affair, everything. He faltered, his grip loosening for a second before his anger surged back. No one will believe you. I am a respected man in this community. You think anyone will listen to your pathetic stories? Do I? I asked, my calm a stark contrast to his fury. We have photographs of the bruises all over my daughter's body. We have a lawyer. And we have Lily's testimony. You leave Lily out of this, he roared. You've poisoned her against me. No, Clara said, her voice gaining strength. Lily saw you. She saw everything. She was terrified of you. Julian raised his hand, his face contorted in a snarl. Shut up. In that instant, the sound of a siren cut through the air, growing rapidly closer. 2 police cruisers turned onto the street, their lights flashing. What is this? Julian spun around, his face a picture of disbelief. I called them, I said calmly. I got a notification that your flight from Portland landed early. I thought it was a wise precaution. 2 officers approached us. Is there a problem here, folks? Julian's demeanor shifted instantly, the rage replaced by a mask of calm reason. Officer, it's a misunderstanding. My wife and my mother-in-law are removing some things from our home without discussing it with me. That is not true, officer, I said, stepping forward. My daughter is leaving an abusive situation. I held up my phone. Her husband just threatened her and grabbed her. I have it on tape. The lead officer's gaze sharpened, focusing on Julian and the red marks on Clara's arm where he had grabbed her. Sir, I'm going to have to ask you to step away from your wife. This is a private family matter, Julian protested, his voice tight with desperation. It became our matter when we got the call, the officer said coolly. Let's hear everyone's side of the story. Separately. My plan had worked. While the police took a statement from a sputtering, indignant Julian, Clara and I finished loading the last of our boxes. A few hours later, at the courthouse, a judge granted Clara an emergency order of protection. Julian was legally barred from coming near our home, Clara's gallery, or Lily's school. That evening, the 3 of us ate a quiet dinner at my kitchen table. Lily, a look of profound relief on her face that I hadn't seen in years, was happily eating a bowl of macaroni and cheese. Nana, she said suddenly, her mouth full. Are we going to live here now? I looked at Clara, who gave me a small, watery smile and a nod. Yes, my love, I said, reaching across the table to take her hand. For a while. We're all going to live here together. We're a family. Lily beamed, hopped down from her chair, and came to wrap her arms around both of us. I love our family, she whispered. The following Christmas Eve, a soft, silent snow began to fall, blanketing the cedar trees and dusting the garden in a layer of pristine white. Warm light spilled from the windows of my house. 1.5 years had passed. In the living room, a magnificent fir tree twinkled with lights, and the sound of children's laughter filled the air. Lily, are those cookies ready? I called from the kitchen. Almost, her bright voice called back. Megan and Kayla are helping me put the sprinkles on. At 12, Lily had invited her best friends over to help prepare for our small Christmas party. The anxious shadow that had once haunted her eyes was gone, replaced by the easy confidence of a happy, well-loved child. Clara came down the stairs, shrugging off her coat. She'd just gotten home from the gallery. Mom, let me help. She leaned in to kiss my cheek. It's all under control. You go relax, I said, smiling. Michael will be here in a few minutes, won't he? Are you ready? Clara blushed, a lovely, youthful color rising in her cheeks. Yes. She glanced down at her left hand, which was, for now, still bare. It still feels strange, trusting someone again. Michael is a good man, I said, putting an arm around her shoulders. And most importantly, Lily adores him. Michael Evans was the head of the museum's education department, a kind, steady man with a gentle laugh and infinite patience. He had been a slow, healing presence in Clara's life for the past 6 months. He never raised his voice. He listened. New photographs had joined the old ones on the mantelpiece. Pictures of the three of us, me, Clara, and Lily, hiking at Mount Rainier, laughing on a ferry, covered in flour in my kitchen. We had weathered the storm of the divorce proceedings and emerged on the other side, bruised but not broken. Clara, having found her own voice, had started an art therapy workshop at the gallery for survivors of domestic abuse, turning her pain into a source of strength for others. Lily, with the help of a wonderful school counselor, had processed her trauma and found her footing again. Nana, look. Lily came into the kitchen, proudly holding up a platter of star-shaped sugar cookies, extravagantly decorated with colorful icing and sprinkles. They are magnificent, I said, my heart swelling. You girls are quite the artists. The doorbell rang and Lily darted to the door. It's Michael. Clara followed her, a genuine, unguarded smile on her face. I stayed in the kitchen for a moment, looking out the window at the softly falling snow. We had heard, through the grapevine, that Julian had served a short sentence for violating the protection order early on and had since moved to California. The restraining order remained firmly in place. He had tried to make contact a few times through lawyers, but Clara, strong and resolute, had refused. Eleanor, come in here. Michael wants to ask you something. Clara's voice called from the living room. I wiped my hands on my apron and went to join them. Michael was standing by the fire, holding Clara's hand. Lily was perched on the arm of the sofa, her eyes sparkling with a shared secret. What is it? I asked, smiling at the scene. Mom, Clara began, her voice thick with happy tears. Michael asked me to marry him. My own eyes filled. Oh, my dears. Congratulations. I moved forward to embrace them both. I actually asked Lily for permission yesterday, Michael said, his gaze warm and respectful as it met mine. Before I asked her mom, Lily was beaming. I'm so happy. Michael is going to be my stepdad. Later that night, long after the guests had gone and the house was quiet, I sat alone in my armchair, gazing at the twinkling lights of the Christmas tree. I picked up a small, framed piece of paper from the end table. It was Lily's drawing of the storm. Clara had had it professionally framed for me last Christmas. To my brave Nana, the inscription on the back read. I thought of that small, folded-up piece of paper, pressed into my hand in a moment of desperate courage. A child's drawing that had changed all of our stories. As the snow whispered against the window panes, I closed my eyes, a deep and profound sense of peace settling over me. Tomorrow, a new Christmas morning would dawn, and the next chapter of our lives, a story of healing and hope, would continue.